Hey, this is Justin with the Money Maven Project. Thanks for tuning in. So I've mentioned a few times in other posts that I would be running the numbers on the property that we found through our direct mail campaign, and I'll do that tonight. So real quick though, I want to go through. I want to run down the BRRRR method. So the BRRRR method is the strategy that I'm using to buy properties. I explained why in the previous video if you want to watch that, but really quickly, here's a scenario so you can see side by side comparison. So if we have a property that has a market value, or what I'll call an ARV after rehab value, all the properties that we'll be looking at will need some level of rehab. If it has a ARV of 150,000, there's kind of a rule of thumb to know what you can offer on that property to make the BRRRR method function like you want it to. Now BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And the power in the BRRRR method is that you can pull out your down payment and your rehab money and go do it again, go buy another property, rather than leaving it, having your down payment stuck in that property and you're having to save up another down payment. That's the power of the BRRRR method, as well as a lot of other things. But in this case, really quickly, $150,000 property, the rule of thumb is that you can buy a property for 70% of the ARV minus the rehab costs. Okay, so that's kind of the equation, and you might think there's no way that's going to happen. Well, people that flip houses, this is kind of what they live by: 70% of the ARV minus the rehab. So in this case, 70% of 150,000 is $105,000, and let's just say in this case there's $15,000 of rehab needed. So in this case, I can make an offer or purchase this property for a maximum of $90,000. Now I can go above that if I want, but I'm probably going to end up leaving money in the deal, and I'll show that. So this is an important number, the 70% and the 105,000. After I do the rehab and get it rented out, you go back to the bank. Now usually the bank will require about 6 months of a seasoning period before you can rehab or refinance that property. Well, you go back to the bank, usually they will lend up to 70% of the ARV, which just so happens to be $105,000. So in this case, I'm in this property on $90,000. I would have a down payment, 20% down payment. I think it's $18,000. So I'm in this deal $33,000 total. That's what I need to try and get back out, so I don't have any money tied up in the deal. So the bank's going to loan me $105,000. I've got to square up with the $72,000 loan, right? $90,000 minus my 18. I square that up. I've got the $105,000 loan, so I've got this money. It's a cash out refinance, so I'm getting my $18,000 plus my $15,000 in rehab costs back out. Now I have a loan for $105,000 on this property. It's worth $150,000. So I've also got $45,000 of equity in that deal. Now I can obviously rent it for a while and then sell it and pull that equity out and buy a new property, or get several of these rolled up. So I've got 10 of them, and they each have $50,000 of equity. Now I'm sitting on $500,000. If I sell all of them and buy a bigger property, that's kind of the power with the BRRRR method. So in this case, with this property that I'm looking at, my real estate agent told me that it's probably got an ARV of 155,000 to 175,000. Kind of a gap. It's difficult to nail it down exactly, but it's always recommended to go on the conservative side. So I'm gonna say it's got an ARV of 160,000. Because if I run my numbers for 175 and it only appraises for 160, I'm leaving a ton of money in that deal, and that's not good. So 160,000, following my rule, 70% minus rehab. We know that property it needs a new roof, so probably you're looking at $9,000 or $10,000 there, and it probably needs another $10,000 inside. So we're looking at about $20,000 in rehab costs. Okay. So 160,000 times 70, it's 112,000 minus my rehab, So that's, what is that, 92,000? Make sure I get this right. Yeah, so $92,000 is the possible purchase price of that deal. Now, a couple issues with that. $92,000. They told me they bought the property for $100,000 and it's paid for. So we already know that that's going to be a tough number for them to bite off on. And with that much rehab, I just can't quite make those numbers crunch, right? I've got to be able to buy it for somewhere around $92,000. They're probably going to want more than $100,000. That makes for a tough deal. Now, if the other part of this is that if the purchase price really is $92,000, I need a down payment of 20%, which I believe is $18,004. Okay, so $18,004 is my down payment on the property. Plus, I need the 20 grand for rehab. So I'm looking at $38,400 to get into this property. Even if they accept this $92,000 offer. Well, $38,004. Problem with that is it's beyond what I currently have stashed away to get into real estate. Between home equity line of credit and cash reserves that I can allocate to real estate, I'm looking at about $35,000 that I can put into this deal. So it's already stretching me too far. In fact, too far past my comfort zone. There's not a lot of room for contingencies, right? If all of a sudden my rehab cost goes to $23,000, you know, I'm screwed. So this is too close for comfort for me. Actually, obviously, it's already beyond my reach where I currently sit. Now this will change. Obviously, I'm saving money. I'm getting a bigger pile of cash to put into the deal, but it's a little bit out of reach just because I don't want to live on such a tight line. So that's one problem. The other problem is this. I don't know that I can get them to accept $92,000. They're into that rehab a little bit of money, and they bought it for $100,000. They're not going to want to accept the $92,000. It's not quite distressed enough. They're not in a situation where they're that anxious to sell. They probably could put it, you know, they could probably find a wholesaler or somebody to buy it for more than I don't know. It's not my deal though. The other thing, I don't have cash to buy this property. Obviously, I've got to go to the bank and get a loan. Now, going and getting a conventional loan, the property has to be livable. Problem with this property is that it's not livable. There's no carpet and there's no paint. That needs texture on the ceiling, which pretty much for a conventional loan, that's a no deal. They're not going to loan me a conventional loan. They're not going to give me any cash on a property like this. So that's a problem. Kind of 3 strikes where I can't get a conventional loan. I don't know that I'll be able to talk to them. They're not that anxious to sell the property to take a loss, and it's a little bit outside of my ability cash-wise to get into that much rehab and with the down payment there. Now, obviously, if this place only needed $10,000, it starts to change things a little bit. But it also means my purchase price goes up, my down payment goes up a little bit, but I could probably do it. So I need to find a property that's somewhere in the first scenario I ran where it's $150,000 ARV with about $10,000 to $15,000 of rehab. Then I can start to make it fit with what I have cash reserves wise. So that's kind of the numbers. Right now the deal looks like it's a no buy. Where there's a couple scenarios, right? I could partner with somebody, so I can bring some cash into the deal, find somebody that's willing to maybe do a short-term loan on this 20 grand, and I can cover this 20 grand, and we can do the deal together. There's that, but obviously we still have this purchase price for the model to work. I just don't know that I can make it work at that price. Now, if we start to get really comfortable with that the ARV is higher, then this will go, and then my ability to offer more goes up. So it might work, but I'm going to need a partner, and I'm probably going to need, probably need cash for the whole deal. Like I said, the bank won't loan on a property that's not livable. So hopefully that makes sense. Obviously really fast. I'll do more deals, but I wanted to crunch the numbers on the property that we're currently looking at, just so you can kind of see if it's a no-go or if we're going to buy that property. Right now it looks like a no-buy, but we're still looking at a couple different options. Let me know what you think. Let me know what questions you have about that, what I maybe didn't explain very well. Let me know. Happy to help out. Thanks.